Well, this is a happy and a sad day for me. Many years ago when I was still young and naive, I met a man by the name of Ed Bagale, and we had a conversation about starting a National Heritage Area. And Ed has been the champion of our heritage area from day one, and without him, we would have never been able to get congressional support as he worked tirelessly with Congressman Bagale and a nonpartisan, bipartisan group of people. And Ed, if I could please have you come up here and allow us to thank you for all the work you've done. It seems like a lifetime for me, for MotorCities. And Cameron, if you could, Cameron McKinney is representing Congressman John Bagale. Bring up Elizabeth in Washington, and I believe that Mr. McKinney would like to say a few words.
Thanks for having me. The Congressman wishes he could be here. He's a long friend of Ed, but he's in Washington today. He asked me to share a few words. I know that personally when I started my job, and I was asking people who held the job previously who I should talk to in the community, the first person that they all recommended was Ed Bagale. So I met with you just a couple of days after I started, and been great to work with ever since. When I asked Congressman Bagale his memories of Ed working on this job, he said, all I need to say is that it wouldn't have happened without him. I don't think much more needs to be said on that. He was there from the beginning, and this is just his project that I think we're all happy to be a part of. And I've heard Ed say before that we all have an obligation to support our region and our city. And I think, Ed, that you've met that obligation and exceeded it. So we really appreciate all of your work. The Congressman's asked me to give you this signed picture of the Capitol and a letter just to thank you for all that you do. Thank you.
Christian and I have been in the foxhole many years with Ed, and I asked Christian to clear his schedule so he could let you know about all the sordid things that Ed has been involved with on behalf of our city. No, you're not going to sit down.
Nancy asked me to speak about Ed for a little bit, and I want to actually start with Nancy, because Nancy, I don't know if you guys realize, this project started with Ed and Nancy and Don Worley, who was the director of the Henry Ford Estate in the 80s. I mean, they were talking about this idea of the National Ford Heritage Trail and the Park Service. And then Ed did a famous thing he's talked about before. And the only thing about, we all know what Ed is, he never talks about himself, he talks about other people. So that's what I'm talking about Ed. But Ed was on Rouge River with Curtis Hertel, our former president. Harold Scramstead is something called the Scram Boat, which is a Boston whaler, and they were going up and down the river talking about the future. Ed brought them together. This is what Ed does. This is what Ed's whole thing has been, is bringing people together. And the vision really was huge at that time, and Ed was painting, not just the Rouge River, but think about cultural tourism and automobile tourism. And this was years ago. The idea came up. Harold started talking to the Metropolitan Detroit Convention Visitor Bureau. A little study came up on cultural corridors, but Ed had a bigger idea. As we all know, Ed has bigger ideas and a bigger vision. So he brought more people together to talk about it. And it came in the 90s, talking about we should do something with this National Heritage Area idea. There's other heritage areas out there. Senator Clark, Bob Lyon, a bunch of people came together. I see people in the audience, Jerry Preston, other people around here that were involved, Charles Black, other people that came into this. We started talking about this idea, and we started going around the country. We actually go to Cleveland, how many times? 10 times. Go down to the guy who talked to John Deagle of the National Park Service. Barb Nelson Jameson came on board, but Ed just kept bringing us together. And we didn't even get to legislation yet. It was just trying to figure out, was this a good enough idea? So Ed started talking to city councils, mayors, and finally there was enough grassroots movement on this that Ed brought in Congressman Bagale. and Dan Beatty was the legislative director. And it took, a year and a half of writing legislation that Ed did. You should know this. Ed worked with Dan Beatty on this, and most of the reasons because one bill just doesn't get passed the first time. And so Cameron's office, way back then, was working on this idea. And finally, with Joe Moldenberg and John Dingle, it got passed in 1998. And we all flew to Washington. You see the picture there with Ed. He's behind Steve Ham. So he's sticking his head out there. But so we were in Washington for that. And again, the legislation got passed, and Congressman Dingle said to Ed, now Ed, don't be like a dog that finally chases a cart and catches it and doesn't know what to do. And so Ed kept saying, okay, I'm going to take that charge, and he brought us together again. Ed was our first president of the board. The first one to sign the Articles of Incorporation. We went over to the attorney's office and got that done. The bylaws were all done. Ed brought us together. So not even just that, but the general management plan idea, it was just, the legislation was saying there was going to be this wonderful National Heritage Area that was going to focus on tourism, education, and natural resource development as well as preservation. Ed pushed us to think about a larger idea, including more than just Detroit, including Flint, including Kalamazoo, including Lansing, all over we actually pulled this together. And it's been on the board for years, and we even faced major challenges with the Alliance of National Heritage Areas. They were looking at us saying, well, you guys are really not like us, because you've got this kind of Motor City thing going, everything's going on. That's the differentiator, folks, is our heritage is alive. And Ed pulled that together, too, because he brought the big four together. The UAW, Chrysler, Ford, GM. He got them all to contribute $600,000 a piece to start our organization up. Blew the Park Service out of the water in the sense of what a national heritage area could be. Again, Ed had a larger idea. So he went over with that and started talking about what this model could be in the Park Service. And we had Marty Sturgill and other people. And it has developed into that. Sure, we've had some struggles, but you heard from Nancy about her triumphs. And we have more strength in our written struggles. But I think the thing that I want to walk away with in honoring my friend, colleague, and my mentor, because I actually was an intern, and he got me involved in this project years ago, is that...
Have you forgiven him for that?
But the idea that Ed brings to us is, and I think it's a big thing that we all need to honor with Ed. It's not a plaque, it's not a piece of paper, but it's all of you here together. And if we move forward, I want that to honor, because he is honoring legacies, constantly bringing people together and having a larger idea. It's not enough to be satisfied with who we are today. It's more about who we want to be tomorrow and who we are serving as our audiences. And that's the semantic idea. Constantly growing, constantly taking care of the grassroots movements, constantly evolving things, constantly innovating new ideas. That's this organization because of Ed.
I wanted to say something on behalf of the whole board. And since you guys had to argue over money for years, he's got the right to do it.
That was our first treasurer.
Well, I'm glad to see a lot of people here to recognize that. And I'm going to read this. I was honored to serve. And I was honored to serve on the MotorCities Board of Directors with you. I really was honored to do that. You impressed me from that first meeting I attended with your dedication to the mission and vision of MotorCities. Couldn't ask for any more dedication than you gave it. Your knowledge of the scope and importance of recognizing the impact that the automotive industry had on America, and especially Michigan, was and still is outstanding. Your leadership and knowledge of the political ramifications of establishing the MotorCities National Heritage Area was astounding, and we will forever be indebted to you for all your time and effort. Thanks, Ed, and I'm thankful that our paths met. You too, Bob.
So you get to open this, and it ticks, but don't let it scare you. There is many more accolades that were sent to us for you, and we're going to send them to you. We're not going to read them because you told me I had to keep this short. So,
I think you probably already did it. I can make at least a couple of comments. You know, I was thinking, Mike's sitting back there, and I was telling him, we were in the dining room for a board meeting. I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes.
yeah.
And there's a beautiful portrait of Wilson Wilson in the dining room. And I told Mike, I said, I used to date Matilda. She was 80 and I was 18. It was more platonic than anything, but I was here at Oakland University as a student, 1965, and we didn't have sports, we didn't have Grizzlies, we didn't have any of that stuff. A digital picture frame, wow. Are there digital pictures in it?
There is every picture we could find of you, Ed. Embarrassing as well as nice ones. That are, some of them are on the screen. There's many, many more. You could put 1,200 pictures here.
Very much.
Desiree loaded them all on, and he has a remote control. And we'll even load more pictures as people.
Well, this is really sweet. This is functional.
Yeah.
See, right from the root plant or something.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, I guess I have to say something tonight. I don't do this all very well, but I was just thinking, you know, the Matilda Wilson story. We at Oakland University, every year we celebrate Matilda's birthday, and I got the pleasure to, because I was the student government president, that I got to escort her to a birthday party. And I don't know how many students were at Oakland back in those days, but there were a couple thousand maybe. And I escorted her to this party. The band struck up Waltzing Matilda, and I led off, and she ended up in that song dancing with every boy in the school. What a wonderful person she was, and the pride that she took in this kind of important evolutionary process of making society better. And certainly the automobile companies did. We're an organization that's about a dozen years old. But this is a history that's 100, how many built? 110 years old or something like that.
At least.
It's, people can use hyperbole, which I'm very prone to do, and I like to do it. Say that the automobile industry in this country revolutionized distribution of wealth and created an effective middle class. And that is a hell of a thing to think about. People that used to come in here and party, won 2 world wars. When you think about it, World War I, World War II, I think your boss was in both. No. I've never had another congressman other than John Bagale. Professional. I said political career, I meant professional. And the people like John, and Carl and Sandy Levin, and Dale Kildee, and Joe Nolenberg, as you very appropriately said, really understand that legacy of automobiles. And they fought battles like you can't believe. I mean, we all know it. the Walter Reuters and all the way up to Bob King, the sacrifices they made for this industry and for the quote American dream, which is the car really the American dream. Spectacular. And you know, here it is, this little trip I took with Curtis Hotel and Harold Stramstead, which I call a piece about it called a sunny day on Ship Creek. Because that was Bruce River, the most polluted river there. Number one on the EPA's areas of concern at the time. And we asked the question, you know, in somewhere around 1995, what would the world, this is the world going to say about Detroit when the ball drops in Times Square on New Year's Eve, or on the first day of the new century. And it's going to be some rusted out hulk of a has-been city and has-been region, polluted, well, catching the rivers on fire, or is it going to be something that, you know, because the automobile industry almost went out of business back in the late 80s. I mean, this is a cyclical world that we live in. What's Detroit going to be like? And there was a consensus at that moment with Harold and Curtis and the late great Ed McNamara and the late revered Arthur Johnson and Dennis Archer and Bill Ford Jr. and just a ton of people that know when that ball drops in 2000, we start a new century, this industry and this community will rise and make an impact on the world greater than we can even imagine. And that is the mission of MotorCities, to help facilitate that in any way we can. And it's always nice to remember your past because that's how you inform your decisions in the future. This organization itself is really no different than Ford Motor Company or Chrysler Corporation, what we call it now, Chrysler Fiat or whatever. I always thought that Ford should have had Sophia Loren as its model, but I guess that's rubbish. But this industry is doing things that most of us couldn't have imagined a decade ago. And the inventions and the technology that flows out of it. That flows out of Tacon in Warren, Michigan. And the airline industry. You can't name an institution in American life that isn't impacted by the automobile industry, and that means going forward. So the mission here is work our efforts. Sure, we've had some ups and downs as an organization. I was telling somebody it's harder to run $1 million a year operation than a $100 million a year operation sometimes, because we all have to take responsibility, and I think everyone in this room, for everything that's good that happens, and probably a good deal of what's bad. Christian, Cam's comments were very much appreciated because I was really grateful, you too, Nancy, that you actually embraced my, sort of my basic professional operational goal, which is to tell the truth. They were about maybe 60% truthful in this description because, hell, we don't know the truth. I mean, we just think we do. And we certainly don't know the future. We just kind of have some general notions of where we would like to go and where things are going to end up. So success has many, many colors. And this organization has been successful and it's beginning to get more and more traction, which is extremely important. But that's going to require, just like the general management plan says it should, sort of grassroots participation and engagement. We represent wonderful organizations. We represent passion for cars. We recognize that we're not gonna ever see our father's Oldsmobile again. But you can't hardly imagine the fabulous things that are gonna be invented as a result of this industry. So, it's an ongoing story. It's a story that the nation needs to hear. And I would hope that for the next decade, we continue to honor Mr. Dingle and the work that he and so many, many other people have devoted their lives to facilitating and enabling. So thank you all for showing up. Thanks for helping us continue to celebrate a great, great story. And thank you, Medical Hall, for letting us in and being part of it.
Because you're the only lay person I know that National Parks love to have a smoking in their ad.
I just got to say, we went up